So welcome to the very first Ubi webinar. We've been doing this Ubi thing for a long time, but this is our very first proper webinar. So please forgive us if we don't seem as slick and smooth as some of the other webinars you've been at, but we will do our best to be useful, to be informative, and hopefully you'll get some value out of this. So today, what we're going to cover is a quick review of the Ubi platform, just to make sure everyone understands what it is that we do. But then really the purpose of being here is about understanding some of the key benchmarks about running a VegBox scheme. And we have a lot of VegBox schemes and food hubs running on Ubi, so we've been able to pull some data together to provide some good benchmarks. And then to dive into the best practices around those key benchmarks. There are so many different ways of running and growing a box scheme or a food hub, and there are some ways that work better than others. And so having the pleasure of being able to observe and see how some of the more successful food hubs are operating, we're able to sort of identify some tips and tactics that hopefully will be useful for you. Then we'll be able to go into question time. So I expect and I'm aiming to finish my rant in about 40 minutes, which would leave us anywhere between 15 and 20 minutes to dive into questions. So do feel free throughout my talk to drop any questions into the chat. Sophia will be able to see those and store those for the end. And then when we do get into question time, we'll start reading from the chat, and depending on how much time we have, we can start opening up for for verbal questions. Just so you know, the session is being recorded. Yeah, thank you all for being on mute during this. And as I mentioned before, please feel free to leave your cameras off if you prefer, and we will answer questions at the end. And there is a takeaway at the end. We've written up a handbook, a growth handbook, that will cover a bunch of the things that we've talked about in here, as well as some other things. So hopefully that will be useful to you. Right, moving on. So the team, we are a team of 9 of us now, and all of us are very dedicated to our purpose, which is putting small scale back at the heart of the food system. And we have all had, in one way or another, an involvement, or most of us have had an involvement in doing what you're doing, and that is running a VegBox scheme or a food hub. Davey and I, the two people on the left in the picture there, have been working together since 2010, and we were running our own VegBox schemes and food hubs in New Zealand and Australia. And we have been in your shoes for about 9 years. So we're not talking from a space of theory, we're talking from a space of practice, as well as what we've learned from other people in the space. And Sophia and Morgan and Kelly and Louise have all worked in VegBox schemes, and they are our support team. And then Jules and Alex are our tech. David, Jules, and Alex are our tech team. And of course, Seb, he also runs his own VegBox scheme at the moment, Hampshire VegBox. So we've got a lot of deep experience in the space. So the product, what Ubi delivers, is an online platform to sell and deliver small-scale food to local customers. And we provide the sales side of things, where your customers can order and manage their orders and subscriptions, as well as we provide the back-end dashboard that handles all of your fulfillment requirements. So, harvest lists and pick lists and packing manifests and deliveries and customer communications and all of that sort of thing. So what we've done over the years is built this platform to be able to handle all the key activities that happen around running a VegBox scheme or a food hub. And the goal being that you don't need to have other tools around. This is one place where you can log in and you can get everything done. and it works. It works very well. There's over 40,000 deliveries happening on this platform every month, and it's growing quite quickly. The benefits are it boosts your efficiency. It reduces a lot of admin time, stock control for your products, offers customers a lot of flexibility in subscription and the like. And recently we've just launched and just rolling out our new modern shopfront. So the customer experience has just getting an upgrade now where they're having a far more intuitive, best practice shopping experience, which is very exciting. As I mentioned, there are a lot of farms and food hubs running on Ubi. There's over 130 of them now, and most of them are farm-based, but we also have food hubs which are, representing local farms. We also have high streets, grocery stores and the like organic shops that are using the Ubi platform to sell online. So quite a good diversity. And the types of businesses running on Ubi now are primarily veg box schemes, but also bakeries, dairies, and we're just now making the system available for local meat boxes and butchers and so on. So we're not just here, as I mentioned before, Ubi's purpose is to put small scale back at the heart of the food system, and that means the small scale independent food producers. And helping them to reclaim market share, helping you to reclaim market share from the supermarkets. Right, so we're going to go through some benchmark figures now around orders, transactions, sales, conversion, and retention. What we've discovered is across the platform, the average benchmark, the average VegBox scheme is doing around about 97, or we'll call it 100 deliveries a week, with an average transaction value of £21. So this is interesting for you to look at and say, well, where am I compared to that? What can I do if I'm under, 100 customers or 100 deliveries a week? What would it take for me to reach the average? And again, with transaction value, often people aren't quite sure, well, what is an average? What's a good goal for a transaction value? And between 20 and 25 pounds a week is a decent transaction for you to be aiming for. And what that translates to is around £100,000 in sales per year. So that gives us all a bit of a picture of what's the average across the board. The other two key benchmarks that are important to look at are your conversion rate, right? And that is 100 people visit your website, how many of those visitors actually become customers? Now, the average across the board on Ubi works out at about 2.7. There are some hubs that are up at 7 and 8%, right? And there are others that are below that. And it largely depends on how well you present yourself and what products you have and how relevant you are to your customer base, and also your delivery zone that you cover. If you've got a lot of people visiting your site that aren't within your delivery zone, they can't sign up. So there's a lot of considerations that you can work on to increase that conversion rate. And then retention rate is probably my favorite and most important metric. And that is for if you were to sign 100 customers up in January of one year, how many of those customers are still with you the following January? And if it's a 33%, which again, across the board, the average on Ubi is around 33%, then you've got, that's 33 people would represent 33% in that case. So there are hubs and VegBox schemes on Ubi that are up at 50, 55, 60%, and then others that are below that. And that largely has got to do with how good is the customer experience. They sign up, they're excited, they get their first box, did it meet their expectations? And then if it did the second box meet their expectations? And were you able to adapt and ensure that you kept them happy? So we'll talk through some keys around that. But one thing before I just want to sort of frame in your mind is everyone today has got a bit of a sweet spot that would be good to be aware of. And that the way to identify your sweet spot is to ask, how many customers could you serve today without adding any more overheads? So if you didn't have to put a new cool room in or extend your packing shed or add any extra costs to look after more customers, how many customers could you serve today? And that's a really important figure, because you really want to maximize the amount of customers you can look after before you start adding more costs. So only you know the answer to that, but there is also ways you might discover that maybe you could serve more than you think you can, based on some efficiencies or some processes that will improve your operations. Okay, so now we're going to go through some best practices around these different areas of your business, but today's really about growing your business and maximizing your sales. And we can probably do another webinar at another time around the whole fulfillment and operations and logistics side. But today is largely about, how can you maximize your sales and keep as many of your customers happy as possible. So we'll start with boosting the average weekly orders. Number one, tell your story. When people are buying from you, they're not just buying food like they are going from a grocery, to a supermarket. They're buying you. They're buying your story. They're buying why you exist, and they're buying into an idea that they love. So you need to tell your story in as many ways as you can, through words, through photographs, and through videos. And there are some amazing videos that have been created showing the story of small farms, on the farmers, on their farms, and it really makes a difference. And actually, Hannah's here from The Nest, and they've done some incredible videos that we'll be able to talk to you about another time as well. So very important to tell your story. Then you're looking at the content that you create for your story becomes the base content that you then take out there through your marketing. So you're sort of curating a message around your story, and then you want to represent that message at farm events, at markets, if you're at any markets, any content that you're putting together that you can do, say, letterbox drops, or what we did, which is really cool, was we created these cards, neighbor cards. And so whenever we did a delivery to a house, some days what we'd do is we'd take a neighborhood card and we put it into the letterboxes each side of the house that we were delivering in. And it would say, hey, we're delivering in your area every Tuesday. Your neighbor's getting a box, sign up and we'll be able to get a box to you. And it was surprisingly effective. General letterbox drops can be effective. I think it all depends on your demographics and the content and so forth, but it's important to try different things to get your word out there. So letterbox drops can be effective. Door knocking, again, can be effective. Now, it doesn't mean that it will work for everybody or that everybody's willing to do that type of thing, but having a box of fresh veg in your hands while you walk up to a house, knock on the door, introduce yourself as a local farmer. This is what we do. Here's a little brochure. Just want you to know that we're here and we love your support. Can be surprisingly effective. And you don't have to do it for days and days on end. Just pick a day a week or pick a day a month and go out there and do it. It just gets there's nothing more real and visceral than a real person, a real farmer at someone's doorstep introducing themselves. Social media is very important. I mean, in fact, David here is on the call today. He was telling me from his experience the three pillars of getting familiarity and bringing customers on are: you want to have good social media presence, you want to have your branding and your awareness on your van, and you want to have face-to-face interactions like at market stalls and so forth. And so they're three good pillars that work really well hand in hand. So think about, with your social media, keeping it local, keeping it relevant to people who are in your local area. If you can be on some local groups and so forth, that can be really helpful. And then collaborating with other businesses around putting the word out there and making sure that people understand. Awareness is probably the most important thing. If you're not, if people don't know you're there, they don't know what you've got to offer. It's just make sure that people are aware that you exist. Another key around your deliveries and your customers is actually where you deliver to. So one of the things on Ubi is that you can create different types of delivery zones. You can have your sort of your inner delivery zone where you might say, okay, it's a free delivery or it's a £2 delivery fee to this particular area and what I've got here in the inner circle. But then you can create an outer delivery zone where you might include customers who you wouldn't otherwise be able to afford that offer, that free delivery or that low delivery fee to, but you can add an outer zone surcharge or delivery fee, extra delivery fee on that, which means that you can start to edge into new areas where there are people. There's a bit of a rule of thumb that sort of suggests that your penetration is somewhere between 0.3% and 1% of the number of households that your delivery area covers. So if there's an area not far from you where there's a bunch of households that you're not delivering to, it does make sense to extend your delivery zone there and try it out with a bit of an extra fee to make it worth your while to get there. You might discover that it's a bit of a hotspot. And if you get enough people in that area that are starting to buy from you, you can always include them in your inner zone or just keep them on the deal they're on. A lot of veg schemes don't offer bespoke or custom boxes. And what that tends to do is you will attract customers that are happy to buy a standard veg box. But often what happens is people try out a standard veg box. They might be able to do some exclusions and replacements, but it's not actually what they thought it was. And you can lose customers by them getting things that they didn't think they wanted, and they end up not eating everything in the box at the end of the week. But by offering a bespoke box or a custom box, it gives them an option to go to other than to just leave altogether. And there is usually a bit of a daunting sort of feeling about doing a bespoke box. It's like, oh, I don't want to have all that hassle of having to pack these custom boxes. But just to be aware that the Ubi platform is designed for exactly this, is to simplify the process of custom boxes. And one of the great things about custom boxes is, number one, you keep customers that would otherwise have left. And number two, they tend to be higher transaction values, right? So someone who would normally spend around £20 when they're building their own custom box, will often spend £25 or £30 because they're getting exactly what they want. And they're in a different mindset when they're shopping. Another really key thing around just boosting your customer numbers is you will naturally have customers that come and start with you and for one reason or another don't continue, but they're like your biggest asset. Your second biggest. Your active customers are your biggest asset, but your inactive customers are people who know about you, they've tried you out, and for one reason or another they haven't continued. But most of the time they've just sort of forgotten that you're there. And often I've had lots of calls with hubs and VegBox schemes where they've just completely forgotten that those customers are there as well. And just by inviting them back, sending a quick email saying, hey, we miss you, and this is some new things we've got happening. We know that you love small scale. We love you. Why don't you give us another shot? And it can be an email that you send out to your inactive customers every once in a while. You don't want to bombard them, obviously, but that list is a really valuable list and one that you don't want to forget is there. And they've already got an account with you, so they don't have to go through the whole process of signing up. They can just click on a link and just get started again. So something to think about with that one. Right, the next stage is about boosting your average transaction value. And there's a bunch of things you can do to increase your transaction value. One is that it's great to have a reminder every week, all right, that the orders are open and that there's a link in the email that takes them to their dashboard where they can add new products. And you want to promote some of the products that you've got on special or the new products that you've added to your list, where the customer can go in and they see, oh, okay, the orders are open. click on this link to see what I've got in the box, what you may have curated for me, and to be able to add more products. And what's really important is you say, and this is the close off date, right? Or the close off time for the orders. When like Seb, for example, which this one here, Hampshire Veg Box is taken from, if they forget to do their sneak peek email, their sales are down quite significantly. So it's an important thing to start doing if you're not already doing it. And if you are doing it, keep it consistent. Make sure you get it out there at a consistent time every week, and remind them when the cutoff order is going to happen, and if you've got any new products or any exciting products on offer. And it really does work. The other thing about lifting your average transaction value is, from time to time, it's a really good idea to upgrade your box sizes and prices. So with food inflation, if you're setting yourself a budget to say, right, we're going to sell this box at £20, and therefore we're going to set a budget of £10 or £12 wholesale to fill that box, or what it would cost wholesale to fill that box. Over time, over the months and the years, the amount of food that you get in that box will just go down and down based on your budget. And so the box starts to look emptier and emptier over time because of inflation. Now, it's important that your box looks full and bountiful. And so sometimes you need to go out and you let your customers know, we're going to start putting more food in your box again. So we'll have to adjust the price of the box accordingly, but we're not putting our prices up per se. You're going to get more food for the higher price you'll pay for the box. But we are going to make your box more bountiful again. And it's an incredibly effective way to be able to boost your average transaction value, and customers do tend to stick, okay, because they are getting more food for their money. The other things about, in terms of your revenue, is your delivery fees are a really important part of your revenue. If you're not charging delivery fees at all, think about charging delivery fees. Some people say, oh, well, we'll build it into the price of the box. I think customers tend to prefer that the price of your products is right and that they'll pay for delivery fees. And delivery fees are something that people understand. There's a cost of that service. And when you do charge delivery fees, that largely drops to your bottom line. And you can also have fees on your drop sites as well. So just because you're taking products to a school or somewhere for drop sites, you can have a small fee. It could be 50p or something like that. But that's an important part of the service that you're providing. And it is a service, and so it's okay to charge for it. Right, surplus products or produce. Often by the time you cut your orders off, you will have produce that you have harvested or that you've bought in that hasn't been purchased yet. So a great idea is, either close to or at the time of cutoff, is you can send out an email to all of your customers saying, surplus bonanza, we've got 15 avocados, or we've got 4 heads of broccoli left over, and you can either put it at a special price or even just a normal price, and a first in, first serve. And what you'll have is customers will come in and buy that just because they don't want to see it go to waste. And there's something about first in, first serve that they just can't avoid. When we were doing that, it was incredible. At the time, we didn't have any stock control, and so it was a real pain, because we do these surplus bonanzas. A whole bunch of people would come and say, I'll have that, and then we'd oversell, and we're like, oh no, I'm sorry, you can't have it. But now that there's a stock control in the system, it's a much easier thing to manage, and it can really help to minimize waste, increase engagement, and increase your sales. And expanding your product range. You might have a range of products that you're producing yourself and other veggies, but if you think about replacing the frequency or helping to reduce the frequency of shops at the supermarket by having the sorts of products that people want to have every week, go to your local bakery who does some great sourdoughs, and offer to be able to sell their bread with your veg boxes. Eggs are an excellent one. Bananas, really popular. Add some items to your list that you're not necessarily producing yourself, but you can buy from other local businesses. and you'll find your average transaction value will go up, and you'll be more sticky. Customers tend to stick around more when there's more products that are relevant to them. All right, conversion rate. We're on the third of the 4 key points. So conversion rate is all about customers coming to your website and deciding whether they're going to buy from you or not. There's 3 really key elements of this. You've got to look professional. So use quality images. If you've got low resolution images, or if you kind of like just went out and did a quick snap here and there, it is going to affect the perception that people have, your first impression. So take the time to use quality images when you're presenting your products. Take the time to write enticing descriptions. It's often like, oh, I don't know what to say about, my broccoli. It's just broccoli. But come up with something that tells a bit of a story about your broccoli and, where it's grown and how it's grown, or something that kind of gives a little bit more character to your products. And also sometimes serving suggestions can work well, just to make people go, oh yeah, I hadn't thought, I might get that, because I can see how that dish would be great. So even in the description, you could put some serving suggestions of that particular item. And again, the same deal with presenting yourself. Get some good photos of you and your team out on the farm, and make sure you create a really inspiring kind of story of yourself and your products. And that will help with conversions. Another one, bit of a contentious one, but it can't be denied, is charm pricing, getting your pricing right. This little chart here shows or table here shows how much difference finishing the price off with a 9 makes in terms of conversion. And I don't like it. I think it's all a big trick to be ending your products in a 9, your prices in a 9. But there's no denying that if you have got a product that is a 20-pound box, if you make it a 19-pound box, you will sell more of them. And bizarrely, if you've got a 25-pound box, if you make it a 29-pound box, you possibly will sell more of those. There's something about the number 9 at the end of a price that just does what it does to our brains. And I don't know what it is, but you don't want to be missing out on that when the supermarkets are using that method. It's you could call it manipulative, but everyone knows about it. But something to definitely be aware of. If you're pricing things where they're ending in 4s or 5s or 6s, why not make it end in a 9? You might find that it makes a difference. Okay, retention rate. So retention is really important, and that all comes down to the customer's experience, right? Their shopping experience online, and then their experience when the box is on their doorstep. And so with retention, it's all about the little things that make a big difference, right? So there's an interesting phenomenon that if someone sticks for 4 deliveries, they tend to be stickier. They've got a higher probability they will stick around for longer. Getting them past their 4th delivery, or getting them to their 4th delivery, is a really important step. So maybe a little gift. It could be just a bunch of herbs with a handwritten note on them saying, hey, thanks for sticking with us, that you can put into their 3rd box. And then again, there's another sort of inflection point at around the 12th or 13th delivery, where once they have their 12th or 13th delivery, they tend to be really sticky at that point. It's a habit. So again, another little gift around their 12th box, just to nudge them into being a longer standing customer. Phone calls, really important. After their first delivery, there's only a few handful of customers that are having their first delivery on any particular week. Take time to pick up a phone and just say, just calling, just checking, did you get what you wanted? Was it put where you needed it? Is everything okay? It builds a relationship. It's a good reason for a call, and it can make a big difference. And the same maybe after their 3rd delivery, just checking in, just to make sure it's all working for you. The relationship that you build through those phone calls and through your communications is a big part of why customers will stick with you. And the other one is around presentation, packaging. It does matter how it looks on the doorstep. When they open their door, it really matters how it looks. And so having something that's consistent, these little bay alarm crates, they're really great because they're clean, they're robust, People can see the produce really easily when they look at it. They can unpack it. They can put the bail arm crate outside and not worry about it getting rained on. They're very low cost, around about £1.50 to buy them, and they just give the customer a consistent experience. But if not the crate, something else, that's going to present your product well at the doorstep, and that just creates a feeling of safety, and people like that. And I mentioned again, consistency. Make sure your comms are sent at the same time every week. Make sure that you keep your look and your feel consistent. Deliver, if you can, deliver at the same time to the same spot every week. So if you've got a delivery run that's scheduled out, stick to that delivery run so that customers expect it to arrive at a certain time of the day, and it does. And they expect it to be in a certain spot on their doorstep, and it is. Right? That's really important. Get your drivers to understand it's got to go to the same spot every time. And then keep within your orders, keep the portion sizes consistent. If your portion size is 5 carrots or 500 grams of carrots, keep it around that size. Don't make one week it's a huge amount of carrots and next week is not that many carrots and so on. You want to keep consistency. People become addicted to consistent things. Here's a very important consideration for you is get to know your customers, learn about what it is that who your customers are, what motivates them. And you can do what we did is a customer census, where it's effectively a Google form survey that asks them all about their experience with you, why they came to you, and then finds out information about them. How many people live in your household? What age range are you in? You can even ask things like, what's your income bracket? And there's a whole lot of demographic information. You'd be surprised people are very willing to give up or hand over in order for you to have a better understanding of who they are so that you can serve them better. And we've got a templated census form that we can send to you, if you like, that we've used ourselves, which has been hugely valuable in terms of understanding who our customers are so that we can make sure that our offering matches what they're looking for. And this one is, I think, probably the most underrated but most powerful experience that we did. And that is to hold a potluck event with your customers. So the method is quite simple, actually. The idea is what you want to do is make it as low cost and low hassle for yourself as possible. And the idea is that you provide the space at your farm or at your wherever you operate from. You provide the table, the tables and the chairs, a musician, a local musician, and maybe a fire, right? And then you invite all of your customers to use the produce that you're going to send to them that week, or a week and a few weeks in advance, to make a dish and bring it along to the potluck, right? And so everyone's bringing something along using ingredients that you've provided to them. And of course, they'll add their own ingredients here and there, and they'll come up with a range of things. But it's the most amazing experience because they all turn up, they're all excited about contributing something. Your customers are connecting with each other. A lot of them will probably be friends that they haven't seen for a long time. You also invite them to invite friends, right? Which then encourage them to be able to buy a box before the potluck event to be able to bring something along. They bring their own plates, their own knife, fork, and glass and bottle of wine. And you just let the night have its head, right? You create the space, you bring everyone together, and it has an energy of its own that just can't be matched. And then at some point during the evening, you go up to the musician, you take the microphone and you say, "Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming. This is what it's all about." Say a little bit about yourselves and talk a little bit about the farm and the ingredients and so on. And then just let them go for it again. Keep the music rolling. Maybe have a fire that spikes up at some point so people can start to hang around the fire towards the end. And you'd be amazed at how valuable the connections are that are made and how people can really relate to what it is that you do. It's a night they'll never forget, and it's something that I think is far more powerful than you'd imagine. So think about that. If you've got the space, this is one of those really high leverage activities that you can offer, events that you can offer, and it doesn't cost you anything, right? It doesn't cost you anything. And you can also invite all of your inactive customers, the customers who haven't been with you for a while. You send them an invite as well. It'll help them to remind you they're there. They'll buy a box in order to come along, and it can be a really good spark for reconnecting people with small scale food, locally produced, the whole movement that we've got to see moving forward. Right. So that is it from me in terms of some tips and tactics of how to grow your box scheme. We are going to be sending you out a growth handbook, which goes into a bit more detail of the things we talked about today. We can also send a copy of this presentation, and yeah, give them a go, give them a try. If you've got any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. If you've got questions about any of the aspects about how it might work specifically for you. But also now, if you have any general questions that you want to sort of ask and put out there, now's the time. We've got about 20 minutes.
Thanks, Pete. So we haven't had any questions come up in the chat as you've been speaking. But yeah, I mean, feel free if you want to ask something, either ask in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask away. If not, that's absolutely fine as well. You can just drop us an email. But yeah, we've got a little bit of time. So we've got a question come in. Can you set a minimum value for a bespoke box?
Right. At the moment, you can't set a minimum value. That is something that we are putting in to the system. What we do recommend around that is that you set a delivery fee. Okay, so by having a delivery fee, you can have a free delivery threshold, which means that any orders above whatever the minimum order that you want to have would be, could be free delivery. So you could say, okay, orders over £20 are free delivery. Orders under that, there is a £4 delivery fee. And so what that means is that if you're delivering a smaller order, you're still collecting a delivery fee for that order, and it discourages very small orders because it makes people not want to spend that much on pay a delivery fee on just a small order.
And what about collections? If you're a collection only hub?
Right. Well, if you're a collection only hub, you can set a collection fee as well if you want to. But I think we are going to be adding a feature where you can set a minimum order value. So that'll be coming.
I have a question if you folks are available.
Yeah, go for it, Daniel.
It's Daniel in Canada. I got two quick ones. One is on May 10th, I'm going to a market. I've been to markets last year, but this year is the first time with Ubi. I'll have a table set up with some plants and stuff. No vegetables growing yet here. Should I set up just a paper with some like an email request I can sign up for what Ubi is, or should I have like a computer there with them to sign up directly? What do you recommend for that first day being face-to-face with customers at our farmers market?
Yeah, great. Well, firstly, I would recommend having a display of a sample of the type of product that they would be having delivered to their door. So a box of veg, and I appreciate you probably don't have anything harvesting at the moment. So it'd be a matter of creating a mock-up, so per se, but then it gives them a very clear picture of what it is that they'd be signing up for. Secondly, it's a good idea to have your delivery zone displayed, so that on the map on the front of your website, there's a delivery zone. If you recreate that delivery zone map, so that's displayed, people can then see that and immediately relate to it and say, oh, am I inside that zone or not? So it answers a question, you know, right there on the spot that, oh, this is the box that I'll be buying, and yes, it's delivered to my home. Of course, you know, whatever your product description would be on your website, you replicate that as well. So you're effectively wanting to create a replica of your website in real life when someone's looking at it. It's a good idea also to have a decent sized QR code so that people who just don't want to have a conversation or whatever, they can quickly just take a photo of or you know, scan the QR code and takes them straight through to the site. But in terms of the conversations you are having, yeah, definitely worthwhile being able to capture their information there on the spot. In some cases, it does work for you to be able to sign up people using a tablet right on the spot where they don't mind signing up, or they can pull their phone out, their own phone, and they can sign up from the phone, and you can just sort of point them in the right direction. But at the very least, if you are able to collect their name and email address and then tell them that you're going to be able to send them an offer or send them a link or, you know, an email explaining how it all works. So you would sort of want to have a few different levels. First is try to get them to sign up on the spot. If they're not willing to do that, you know, get them to take a photo of their QR code or get their details in so that you can follow up with them.
One more little follow-up question. I didn't catch the name of it. What was the name of the crate that you had mentioned?
They call bail arm crates.
Bail arm.
Yeah. And Seb, did you have a response as well?
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Yeah, I was
Yeah.
just responding to Daniel's question about sign-ups on the day. I mean, we started having a laptop at an event and getting people to sign up on the day, and we found that it was really effective. Whereas before we had people, you know, as enthusiastic as they might have been on the day signing up, no matter how enthusiastic they were and how much they said they were going to sign up afterwards, they just didn't. And as soon as we had a laptop there and the ability for people to be able to sign up on the day, it was really worthwhile. It really made a big difference. So I'd recommend that if you can.
Right. Thanks for that, Seb.
Thank you.
And if anyone else has got tips that they've used while they've been at market stalls as well, please feel free to you know, add your thoughts.
Pete, can I just add one more thing to that?
Yes,
onto Seb's thing, which is that I think that there is a golden window when you're face to face with people.
Yeah.
And I've stood on market stalls and handed out an awful lot of leaflets, and those leaflets come home with people and they sit by the telephone and nobody does anything with them. And then spring cleaning comes and they get put in the bin. There is a golden window when you're in front of customers, and that is to have the conversation about cooking habits and have the conversation about how many people live at home, and to get into a lifestyle conversation with people about what they are doing. And that opens a dialogue, which is not really about trying to sell something to somebody, but it's about trying to get into their head about the way in which they run their lives and who enjoys doing the cooking and who enjoys that experience. And if you connect that in a heart way, people really open up to that, and that really moves people forward in an ability to be able to say, well, okay, fine, well, I'll give it a try. And particularly where people don't feel they're committed to anything, that's another thing. They're not sort of signed into, you know, a 12-month contract or something ridiculous. It's an opportunity for people to try it and see how it goes, and then it's up to the hubs to hold on to those customers and look after them, like you've been talking about, Pete.
So David, yeah, just could you mind just sharing your experience, what it is that, you know, because you were running a Riverford franchise, right?
Yeah, I ran a Riverford franchise for nearly 5 years. At our peak, we were doing 1,600 deliveries a week. And the things that I really wanted to make sure happened on a regular basis and that we really nailed, number one was the customer experience. So we had effectively 2 ways in which customers would interact with us, from our office, which was either over the phone or on email. And so replying to those emails and answering the phone in a consistent way and giving consistently accurate answers was definitely one way, and being very responsive and accurate around that. The second way, which was something we learned over time, was exactly what you were talking around, Pete, around the delivery. So even if you have one delivery driver, and if you have and that delivery driver goes on holiday, what customers notice is when we change. So if something shifts, like the box isn't exactly in the same place, or the timing is going to be different, you can be super proactive about that. If you know that something's going to be different, and you know that someone's had a puncture, or you know that something is going to be out of the ordinary, you can communicate that in the morning before you head out on the round. It's not complicated, and it's these small things that make a difference, because you end up becoming slightly embedded in everybody's day. And there is still, I found it fascinating that it didn't matter how many times we delivered, whether we delivered to customers the first, second, third time, or the 100th or 200th time, there was still an excitement about the vegetables arriving, right? It's like a gift. People used to say, oh, it's like a gift arriving on the door. And particularly as the seasons change, it gets very exciting to see what's going to come in the box. Even if they already know what's coming in the box from an email, that exchange is something which is very nice. And the interaction with the drivers, I spent a lot of time with the drivers, talking to them about interacting with the customers, and not just doing a sort of drive and dump thing, but actually, if there was a customer there, have a quick conversation and then move on. And that really made a big difference to people, to people carrying on. The last thing I would say is just on any opportunity that you have to have a conversation or an interaction with a customer is a golden moment. And I think that whether that is you're seeing existing customers through events, or on market stalls, or at new events, or whether you're doing the rounds and you're getting your face out there and you're seeing customers yourself on the doorstep, every one of those interactions is golden, and it gives you an opportunity to get feedback, and it gives you an opportunity, if you want to change and flex things. So yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, David. Yeah, I think that is true. You're not just delivering a service. You're not just delivering food. You're delivering a meaningful relationship to these people. Yes, Sophia.
We've had another couple of questions in the chat. So one being, are there any other events and activities / extra products like recipe books that work well to build your tribe of customers? So that's one. And then the other one is a weekly newsletter that goes out with the box worthwhile, or just another overhead?
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, events and things like cookbooks and the like, I think it's easy to overspend on those things, but it's also definitely, and valuable. Like if you have access, I think Riverford, they always put out a cookbook with every first delivery or every third or whatever delivery. If they've got the means to be able to give something valuable that that the customers will appreciate, then it's great. What you don't want to be doing is loading yourself up with costs that aren't sustainable. I think in terms of events, again, the same thing is do what you can within your means. Like, if you're a large organization, there's a lot more you can do. If you've got a lot more resources, a lot more you can do. But I would err on the side, personally, this is my own personal opinion, I would err on the side of being generous with what you can be generous with. If you've got, extra produce that you would otherwise put to waste, or, then be generous there, but be frugal where you can be frugal. Like I would say that one of the most important things about a small scale business is managing your expenses. So find ways at a low cost to be able to connect with your customers. Phone calls are great. Phone calls are really good, because they're there. And if you, like, as David said, if you can find a way for your driver to be a point of contact on a regular basis. So when they get to the door, knock on the door. Don't just turn up and put it on the door and go. Turn up, knock, wait 4 or 5 seconds. If you don't hear anything, put it down and wander back to the van, right? I used to do that every time. When I did deliveries, I always knocked. And when they answered the door, it'd be, oh, how are you going? You have a big smile. And then you ask them, oh, is there anything else that we could be doing that make this work better for you? right? You'll learn so much just from that question. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to do it, but you're asking them something that will give you the hint as to what it would what would make a positive difference for that person. I don't know if anyone else has got any tips from their experience.
I just wanted to chime in about the box letters because there was the part of the question was on that. We started doing box letters, and I always felt that it was really valuable because I like having something in a box that I receive and then being able to read it at a later date. But actually, when we stopped it and put that information online with a link from the sneak peek email, we didn't find it had any impact. So it saved us some time and it saved us printing costs to not do it, and it didn't have any negative impact and only positive impact in terms of the money saving. So I recommend at least seeing, maybe trying it out and seeing how it goes and how much time and cost it does have. But it didn't have much effect on us.
Okay, good to know. Sophia?
Jack would like to ask a question. Jack, do you want to unmute or do you want to pop it in the chat?
Hi, actually, Jack's father.
So, hi.
Jeremy. We're farming in Hereford and we're just contemplating starting a box scheme. And I was just wondering if there's any information that you have. You talk about, I think the average spend is about 20-25 quid on a box. But what is the sort of pricing makeup of that box? So how much is the contents, as in the actual veg, how much packing and delivery,
Right.
etc. All those little costs that add up. It'd be
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's more on the sort of the unit economic side of the business. But as a rule of thumb, and this is off the top of my head, just from memory, your cost of the produce that if you're talking about just a standard veg box here, so we're not talking eggs or bread or anything like that, just veg. You want the sort of the wholesale price to be somewhere around between sort of around the 50% of the retail mark, right? So if it's a 20-pound box, you want to have a budget for spending around 10, maybe 11 pounds at wholesale to fill that box up. And then your box, the actual cost of the box itself, well, that can depend. If it's a bail arm crate or something that's very reusable, then the cost is going to diminish the more you use it. But if you're using a cardboard, standard cardboard boxes, then I think they vary anywhere from like 50p to £1.50, for a box. If you get them branded and waxed and so forth, the prices can vary. The other component is your labor. It's the time of. There's also the label, the customer label that sticks onto the box with all the ingredient, what you're going to be putting into the box is there. But it's primarily time at that point, right? It's the time to erect the box, to pack the box, to load the box into the van, and then obviously to deliver it. But there are time saving, that's the other part of what Ubi does, is it gives you the information you need at the time you need it to be able to run a very, slick or a sort of streamlined operation, I should say, from the point you're picking it to the point it's being delivered.
Thanks.
I don't know if anything else to chip in on that, but that tends to be the numbers that I've seen. Okay. So we're coming up to 4 minutes to the end of the hour. So we've got a little bit more time for some more questions or comments. Anything anyone else wants to share?
I got another quick question to follow up, if I could ask one.
Please.
It's Daniel in Canada. So we're on about an acre now, expanding to 2 acres. I'm hiring my first employee this summer, and we sell locally within about a 30-kilometer radius. This is I'm a high school teacher. This is just something I do on the side. What is the benchmark that I should be aiming for the number of customers before I burn myself out? Like when you were talking about 100 deliveries a week, should I be starting off small and expanding over time, or 20 customers, 40 customers? What is people's experiences with starting off new?
Right.
Because I want to provide that great experience for people and not run short on, supplies and veggies and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, I think, I mean, and Seb might chime in on this one as well, but if you're actually doing all the production yourself, you're growing the food and you're doing everything from seed to plate, so to speak. That's different from just running the packing and fulfillment side in terms of the number of people and the amount of time it takes. I think, it kind of depends on the size of your team, like how many people you have and how much time they have available. So there'll be 2 of you. Okay. I would say that 2 of you, putting aside a full day for packing and deliveries, you should be able to handle 60 to 80 deliveries. Just that's not to do with the growing side. That is a day of packing and deliveries. Seb, what would you say?
Yeah, it's exactly when, I mean, we weren't growing when we started. We initially were collecting from other growers and then packing, and we were doing it all on one day because that's all we had available, and that was 2 of us. And it by sort of 70 boxes, it was starting to get really, really full day, and if you're also doing a full-time job around that, I would see that as the absolute max for doing everything in one day. And we then had to split it up into more than one day and do it across 2 days in order to be able to handle it.
Yeah, and you could do you can do packing on one day with some deliveries going out on that day, and then more deliveries going out the next day.
The only thing I would say, sorry, Pete, is just to say that that also comes down to how efficiently you've got your packing set up, right? Your weighing and your packing. Because I look back and I think we definitely didn't have it set up in the right way. So we could have definitely cut some time down if we'd gone with the lean packing approach. And there's some stuff on our website in the resources section, the article section, about the different methods of packing and what's quicker and what's not. So I would definitely recommend looking into that and being as efficient as possible on the day, and then of course you can fit in a few more boxes as a result.
Yeah.
Okay, should we jump
Right.
to Sabrina for the last question?
Yes, please.
Hi, it's not so much a question, it's just that for Jack, his dad, and Daniel, be aware there's also time involved in collating the veg you need to put in the boxes and customer care time. They can both take up a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, hopefully this has been useful for you. It's been our first time delivering this sort of information, and so we're obviously going to review and look at ways that we can do it better next time. But hopefully it has been useful. And as I mentioned, we will be sending you out an email with a recording and the presentation, as well as a handbook that goes in a bit more detail. If you've got any questions at all, you can reply to that email. And we're here in general just to connect with and ask anything, and we can see what we can do for you. So thank you very, very much for your time, and have a great one.
Thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.